Hello, my name is Ali, and I work on this project with my group mate Sujat, and our project title is Modeling and Optimization of a Hybrid Solar Wind Energy System using Homer, a case study of Lancelot. Remote communities like Lancelot in Labrador depend mostly on old diesel generators and long-distance power lines. This makes their electricity expensive, unreliable, and harmful to the environment. Our goal was to model and optimize a hybrid renewable energy system that combines solar panels and wind turbines. We want to reduce the community's reliance on diesel, lower greenhouse gas emissions, and improve energy reliability and cost. The motivation behind this is clear. The community depends heavily on fossil fuels, which leads to high cost and pollution. Also, power outages and interruptions from hydro cable show how important it is to have local, self-sustaining energy systems like solar power. To do this, we use a software called Homer Pro to simulate and design the system based on local electricity needs, renewable resource availability, and economic and environmental factors. The community uses about 35 million kilowatt hours for 1 year, which is around 96,000 kilowatt hours per day. On average, the power demand is 4,000 kilowatt with a peak load of 5,841 kilowatts, usually between 6 and 7 p.m. The lowest demand happens overnight from midnight to 4 a.m. For placing the solar and wind system, we consider three options. The first option is near the diesel plant, which makes connection easy but has limited space, only about 10 to 15 hectares. The second option is north of the community, which about 50 hectares of land. This site is ideal for large solar and wind projects, but it would need 2 to 3 kilometers of transmission lines. The third option is south near the coast, where there is better sunlight, but environmental regulations are stricter. In this slide, I'll explain the hybrid wind solar PV system we designed for this community. This system combines solar panels and wind turbines with a grid-type setup. That means it can supply the community with clean renewable energy while staying connected to the main grid for backup. When there is more renewable energy than needed, for example, like on a sunny day, windy day, the system can export extra power back to the grid. On days when solar or wind resources are low, it can import electricity from the grid, which keeps the community's power supply stable all year round. The system works by connecting the solar panels, which produce DC electricity, and the wind turbines, which generate AC power through a sine Excel 500 bidirectional converter. For solar energy, VT65 inverters help manage the output. And for wind, we use V47 wind turbines, which are known for providing steady power. It's important to mention that this design ensures that community always has access to electricity, either from renewable resource or from the grid when needed. Let's look at the solar potential. The community receive an average global horizontal irradiance of about 3.1 kilowatt hour per square meter per day, and it's based on NASA data. This value varies with seasons. In winter, it drops to about 1.2, while in summer, it can reach up to 5.1 kilowatt hours per square meter per day. Next is wind speed. The wind is generally stronger in winter, which is helpful because it complements the solar resource. The average wind speed is about 4.2 meter per second in July, and it increases to around 6.2 meters per second in December. This means when solar production is low in winter, wind energy can help balance the system. Finally, relating to the temperature conditions, winter can be very cold with average lows of minus 14 degrees Celsius, while summers are milder, reaching about 19 degrees Celsius. We should note that the cold temperature are actually good for solar panels because they operate more efficiently in cooler weather and reducing thermal losses. The system was designed to meet a daily energy load of 9,600 kilowatt hours with peak demand of about 991 kilowatts. A Sine Excel inverter controls the power flow between the solar panels, wind turbines, the grid, and the community load. This inverter allows bidirectional energy flow, meaning the system can import power from the grid during low renewable generation and export extra energy back to the grid when there is surplus production. This simulation showed that the system can reliably supply power all year round with no unmet load. It also handles peak demand effectively, maintaining a stable operation throughout the year. The centralized inverter control ensures that the balance between DC and AC power is managed efficiently, which supports which supports both solar and wind inputs. In the Homer simulation, we model a system with a 1 megawatt solar array and 660 kilowatt wind turbines. The result shows that this setup can reduce the overall cost of energy, ensure continuous power supply, and also maximize the use of renewable energy in the community.
Energy source contributions. In this slide, we break down the energy contributions from each source in our hybrid system. The solar PV system is the dominant energy contributor, supplying around 72.4% of the total electricity. This is followed by the Vestas V47 wind turbine, which contributes roughly 24%. The remaining 3.6% is supplied by the grid primarily as backup during periods of low renewable generation. This monthly production graph on the right illustrates how solar output peaks during spring and summer, aligning with higher solar radiance while wind production remains consistent year round. System synergy and seasonal performance. The configuration of both solar and wind systems provides excellent synergy. The hybrid approach helps us overcome seasonal variations and ensure stable power supply throughout the year. When solar output dips in the winter, the wind turbine picks up the slack and vice versa. This mutual compensation greatly reduces grid dependency. PV system configuration. Our PV system uses dual axis tracking to maximize solar capture. We employed the VarioTrack VT65 MPPT controller along with the 115,000 kilowatt fixed flat plate array. This combination achieves on annual PV energy output about 1.92 gigawatt hour, which is a sustainable contribution to the overall load. PV energy output modeling. To model the PV output accurately, we used a standard irradiance temperature correction formula. The formula accounts for solar radiation under standard and actual conditions with a derating factor of 0.80 and a temperature coefficient of minus 0.0041 per degree centigrade. This ensures our simulated performance reflects real-world variability. Wind energy modeling. We also model wind speed at the hub height using the logarithmic wind profile. This allows us to predict power output at different altitudes accurately. The formula accounts for changes in wind speed due to surface roughness and height, improving the precision of our wind turbine performance estimations. These modeling techniques and configurations are essential to designing a reliable and efficient hybrid system tailored to Lancealo's unique, unique climatic conditions. This slide highlights the contribution of Vista's V47 wind turbine, which generates approximately 1.3 gigawatt hours annually. The energy supports both local consumption and grid export. Importantly, the wind power output complements solar generation, especially during periods of low radiance. We also emphasize the importance of a site-specific modeling. The wind resource is characterized using hub height, wind speed, and adjusted with a logarithmic profile to reflect local wind conditions. This helps improve the accuracy of energy yield prediction in Homer Pro. Next, we explain the role of the 500 kilowatt SineXL bidirectional inverter. It integrates both the PV system and the wind turbine into the grid, enabling efficient power transfer between the DC and AC sides of the system. Finally, we focus on system autonomy and reliability. The hybrid configuration ensures consistent electricity supply throughout the year, minimizes grid dependency, and contributes to achieving a high renewable fraction of over 72%. These integrated components work together to deliver a stable, resilient, and low-emission energy solution for the community. Slide presents a deeper look at the power converter functionality within our hybrid system. We used a SineXL converter rated at 1456 kilowatt, but interestingly, only the inverter side was active. The rectify section recorded zero throughput, which aligns with our grid-tied configuration that doesn't rely on battery storage or DC side inputs. In terms of performance, the inverter transferred approximately 1.87 gigawatt-hour of energy from the solar PV system to the AC load, operating over 4,397 hours in the year. This aligns well with the daytime irradiance availability and solar generation capacity. The peak instantaneous output reached 1,299 kilowatt, demonstrating strong demand-side matching. The system experienced minimal annual conversion losses, about 44,626 kilowatt-hour, which equates to an overall inverter efficiency of 95%. This is consistent with industry expectations for high-performance grid-tied inverters. The inverter's capacity factor was 14.7%, which is typical for solar-driven systems where generation is limited to daylight hours. Seasonal and diurnal variation are captured through the heat map visualization, clearly highlighting higher utilization during spring and summer months. This slide summarizes the key performance insights from the hybrid system simulation. To begin, the system achieved an annual energy generation of 4.89 gigawatt hour with a renewable fraction of 72.4%. This indicates that a majority of the load demand is being met through solar and wind, reducing the community's dependency on conventional grid supply. Next, we observe a balanced grid interaction where grid imports and exports are nearly equal. 1.336 gigawatt hour was imported while 1.338 gigawatt hour was exported. This balance reinforces the system's ability to act as both as a consumer during low generation periods and as a supplier when surplus energy is available. Heat maps of PV and wind output reveal clear seasonal and diurnal patterns. Solar energy production peaks during the spring and summer months due to increased irradiance, whereas wind power is more evenly distributed throughout the year, providing consistent generation, especially in winter. The system's capacity factor further validates its efficiency. The PV system achieved a 21.9% capacity factor, which is typical for cold and moderately sunny regions. Interestingly, the wind system performed even better, thanks to the region's strong and steady wind conditions, especially in coastal Labrador. Together, these insights highlight the effectiveness and resilience of the hybrid system in meeting energy demand sustainably year-round. This slide presents the key economic and environmental outcomes of our hybrid renewable system. Starting with cost effectiveness, the system has a total net present cost of $3.97 million and a highly competitive levelized cost of energy of 6.34% 6.34 cents per kilowatt hour. This shows the system is not only technically viable but also financially sustainable over its 25-year lifespan. Regarding the payback period, it is estimated between 8 to 12 years, driven by reduced grid electricity dependence and the use of renewable energy. This relatively short period strengthens the project investment appeal. In terms of cost distribution, the PV components makes up the majority of investments, around $3.13 million, followed by the wind component. Grid and O&M costs are minimal, reinforcing efficient capital allocation. From an environmental perspective, the system is expected to offset approximately 1,500 to 2,000 metric tons of CO2 annually, along with significant reductions in other pollutants such as SOx and NOx. This contributes meaningfully to local and national emission reduction targets. Additionally, there are public health and environmental co-benefits, including improved air quality and lower noise levels. Finally, surplus electricity exported to the grid promotes energy autonomy and could generate revenue under net metering or similar schemes, enhancing the overall project value. In this final slide, we summarize the key outcomes of our project. The system achieved a high level of reliability, supplying 72.4% of the community's annual energy demand through renewables with no unmet load. This confirms stable, round-the-clock performance across all seasons. The system delivered an annual energy output of approximately 4.89 gigawatt-hour, with about 1.92 gigawatt-hour from PV subsystem and 1.63 gigawatt from the wind turbine. The grid only serves as backup, ensuring resilience during low renewable periods. Economically, the project proved viable, achieving a levelized cost of energy of $0.06339 per kilowatt hour and a payback period of 8 to 12 years, driven by minimized operational cost and long-term savings on grid imports. Environmental benefits were also substantial, with carbon dioxide emissions reduced by more than 1,300 kg per year, along with significant drops in other harmful pollutants like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides. Importantly, the system design demonstrates scalability and grid interaction flexibility. It enables energy autonomy while allowing for further grid exports or microgrid replication or in other isolated communities. Lately, the work contributes a complete technical and economic assessments that supports decision making for renewable deployment in similar settings. And I thank you for your attention and support throughout this project presentation. Have a good day.